Growing up, I was this quiet, sensitive kid who got picked on a lot. My family would call me names like Sissy Lala, you little bitch, you little girl, and that made me feel really small. And over time, that compassion that I had, well, it got beaten out of me, like literally. And by the time I hit my teens, I learned that being kind, well, that shit got you nowhere, and especially with the ladies. The wrong we were taught with something like this. You gotta struggle hard and life's a bitch. She threw you as a shovel to dig your own ditch. But looking back at my life, I wouldn't change shit. The world is divided into a billion pieces. Welcome to Sundays in the Shadows, a place for the bold, the brave, and the unfuckwitable. I am Mark Sanchez, and if you're ready to laugh, cry, heal, and face your shit head on, you're in the right mother-loving spot. You see, this podcast is about turning your pain into power. It's about facing your shadows and living with unshakable joy. Because who doesn't want to live with unshakable joy? And if you say that you don't want to, well, I think you're lying. But who am I to judge you? You see, this episode 0, the intro episode, is where you get to know who I am, why I started the podcast, and how it fits into the bigger vision I am building. So buckle up, because we're diving into my past, my struggles, my growth, and everything in between. And remember, I'm not here to sugarcoat anything. Growth, success, and spirituality aren't always sunshine and rainbows like a lot of you mother lovers make it look like. And that's exactly why we're here, because I'm sick of that shit. I'm sick of you guys showing your highlight reels and making it look like it's all sunshine and rainbows and unicorns and fairy dust and shit. But it's not. Quit faking the funk. So let me take you back to where it all started. Growing up, I was this quiet, sensitive kid who got picked on a lot. My family would call me names like Sissy Lala, you little bitch, you little girl, and that made me feel really small. And over time, that compassion that I had, well, it got beaten out of me, like literally. And by the time I hit my teens, I learned that being kind, well, that shit got you nowhere, and especially with the ladies. And since I was into them at that moment, I had to learn how to get them. So guess what? I became the asshole that they seemed to love. And before you knew it, I was getting attention like never before. Where did I learn this shit from? Well, you see, my dad, he always had a lot of women around him. And my mom, she wasn't always nice to her boyfriends. So I didn't have a clue about how to act in relationships, in any type of relationship when I look back at it now. And so I learned from the movies and the music and the streets. And in these scenarios, it was all about the money, the power, and respect. You know, sex, drugs, and alcohol. And then when my mom went for an extended vacation in one of California's most prestigious hotels for women, and my dad was too busy running the streets, I had no one to keep me in check, and I ended up getting myself kicked out of the 8th grade for having a gun on school grounds. Yes, me. I did that shit. Not proud of it, but I did it. And that got me sent to Arizona to live with my tia Ezzy. They thought a new city would straighten me out, but it just gave me a bigger playground. You see, high school was a blast. I was dealing drugs, I was making money, I was having fun, had a lot of women, but on the inside, I was scared as fuck. I was in survival mode. I was lost and trying just to get by. I managed to graduate because, well, school was easy for me, and good grades kept my mom and my tia Ezzy off my back, and if they weren't on my back, that allowed me the freedom to keep running the streets, to keep making the money that I thought I want to make, to keep banging the women that I thought I wanted to bang. But let me tell you, fast forward into my 20s, I was still hustling, but now in the hospitality industry. I got my first job as a host in 2002. 2002, and man, the fast pace, the customers, and ooh, the women, it was like high school but on steroids. And I climbed the ladder fast and became a manager, and I loved the power, but behind the scenes, I felt like a slave. I was drinking excessively, I was partying and living the nightlife, but when I got home at night, I was riddled with anxiety. I even ended up in the ER a few times because of panic attacks. That's when I realized something wasn't right. I was hating my job, I felt exploited, but I didn't know how to speak up because I thought I should feel lucky for this position. You know how many people would kill to be in the position that I'm in, and it almost seems like it was handed to me because I slaved away for this motherfucking shit? Well, check this out. In my 30s, things didn't get easier. I stopped dealing drugs, but that left me broke as a joke with no grass to smoke. I was still smoking weed. I was still drinking, partying, and sleeping around, and I hit a low point. I was overweight and living at my aunt's house, working 5 to 6 days a week, but still felt like a mother-loving loser. I mean, you gotta be a loser if you're like 30 years old, fat, overweight, and living at your aunt's house, right? Then came my introduction to personal development through an MLM company. Yes, a multi-level marketing company saved my motherfucking life, in a sense. They introduced me to books, seminars, and the idea that my life was a reflection of my choices. And that's when I started making changes. I started with my health because I was tired of being fat and overweight. So now in my 40s, I've transformed my life. I'm still in the hospitality industry, but I work fewer hours. I have a clear vision of where I'm headed. I only do what aligns with my values and what brings me joy. You see, looking back, I'm grateful for the shit that I've been through because it shaped me into who I am today. And I'm able to bring you my story through this podcast, through my coaching, through my Instagram, through all my other contents. And that's why I created this podcast, is to show you that no matter how messy life gets, there's always a way to turn that shit into gold. Now, don't hold me to my word on that, because if you can't turn your shit into gold, well, that's on you, and I'm not responsible for that. So what drives me is simple. I see the joy in people beneath all the stress and the anger. I feel them screaming out for help, but not knowing how to ask, because we've been conditioned to just shut the fuck up and keep it to ourselves and put your head down and get to work. Blah, 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 blah. I know what it's like to face your shadow and to take your power back. I know that journey doesn't have to be done alone, and it shouldn't be done alone. There are people out here who genuinely want to help, and I am just one of them. There's multiple podcasts that you could go listen to and multiple different channels that you could find help in. So if this one doesn't resonate with you, go look for a different one. You see, I believe in a world where people trust and support each other, where there's enough for everyone, and where you don't have to drown your pain in booze, drugs, or distractions. We could face our shadows head on and live in unfuckwitable joy. So what can you expect from Sundays in the Shadows? You're going to hear real stories, raw, unfiltered, and sometimes ugly stories of betrayal, success, horror, and triumph. You'll hear about the shitty things we've done to others or had been done to us. Most importantly, you'll learn how to overcome the hardest parts of your lives and how you can use your own struggles as fuels to become the greatest version of yourself. I'll be bringing on guests who have walked through their own shadows and come out stronger. We'll have deep, honest conversations that'll make you laugh, cry, or even scream. This isn't a surface level podcast. We're going to be going deep. I'll also be sharing free resources in the show notes, running challenges, and providing extra content through my social media channels and communities. You see, this is about creating a space where we can all grow together, sharing our wins, our losses, and everything in between. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you're ready to laugh, cry, heal, this is the podcast for you. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you know someone who needs to hear this and can benefit from it, share it with them. And together we're going to face our shadows, grow, and live in unshakable joy. Until next Sunday, remember, laugh when it's ridiculous, cry when it's real, and heal because you're worth it, and then repeat that shit. And also remember, nobody's coming to save you. It's up to you to learn how to fish yourself out of the fuckery. Love ya. Even if I got the chance, I would have started this life from scratch. I learned a lot from selling drugs and stabbing traps. It wasn't so fun, but knew how to act. Since I was young, I was surrounded by thugs. This is what they plan for me. I'm my worst enemy.